Penny, let people know who's coming on.
Yes. So this is a little blurb that from another video that Nathan did. Nathan, pleased to see you.
Glad to see y'all.
I'm going to read the one from a video that you did. It says, by the phaser, disturbing content, the Luciferian kingdom behind the earthly power, Nathan Reynolds. Nathan Reynolds left the Reynolds family empire behind when the cost to receive his inheritance was the life of his firstborn daughter. As a young boy, Nathan's innocence and body were used as currency to purchase influence and power by his deep-rooted Luciferian family members. His grandfather was working within the shielding of the Knights of Columbus, traumatized and exploited children to advance the secret order's agendas further. Nathan reveals the depravity of the Jesuits and other oath-keeping societies who use blackmail, pedophilia, and even child sacrifice to empower their kingdom's tyrannical takeover. Many well-known and influential individuals, politicians, police, and even pastors are willing to sell their souls to gain the world. But even amidst the radical, intelligent evil, the survivors of these torments choose to fight back and wage a war of redemption against the cowards of control. The new Reynolds family is on a quest to see the captives of crime and cowardice set free. Welcome to the Awake Nation, Nathan. How are you?
I'm spectacular. How are y'all doing?
Good.
Good.
Nice to have you here.
Can you, I know that the name, the Reynolds name is an Illuminati name. So we have Burt Reynolds. We have Reynolds Rap. It's actually named in Springmeier's book as one of the Illuminatists' names. Can you tell us, take us from the beginning of your childhood and growing up, and tell us what happened to you?
Yes. So there's quite a multiplicity of facets to the Reynolds family dynasty. There's one that is much more mainstream, a bloodline of individuals that control the aluminum empire and the tobacco industry. My family is kind of a descendants of a different side, which is kind of more operates around the black gold side of it, the corruption, the blackmail, the extortion, and the black operations budget programs. And my family started out by procuring major financial wealth and assets through the sexual exploitation and the child exploitation of their family members. And basically it was the keys to power of their kingdom. If they wanted access to the empire, really, which is more of a phone book, people I think have this idea, this illusory idea that power comes through wealth. Power for the wealthy comes through anonymity. It comes through the ability to influence and take actions outside of the public sphere of being witnessed and seen and evaluated. This gives them the ability to work without anybody controlling them or regulating them. So the way that most families really with huge dynastic powers do that is they go underground. And the way they do that is they can camouflage themselves amongst other citizens. So my family looked and appeared to be a lower class family by all appearances on the surface, but with a single phone call, they could get anything they needed. And the way that you got access to that, though, was you had to pass one of your children, generally the firstborn son, into this fires of this abusive system. People, if you read from the ancient historical text, they called sacrificing their children to Moloch or to they're literally offering up their children as a burnt offering. That doesn't always mean they're consumed. It means they're transformed into the image of these other mighty ones, these other gods. And my family did that through the Jesuit orders that are under the ruling hand of the Knights of Columbus in an area called Lake Havasu City, Arizona, predominantly, also in Flagstaff, Arizona. And so as a young child, I was passed into this system of duplicity, where on the surface, we looked like a normal Christian family, but underneath there was radical intelligent evil that was taking children and handing them off to grandparents predominantly, because there's a lust and an addiction that people get into and they get caught up in this towards pedophilia, towards child incestuous child relationships and rape. And so my parents would hand me off to my grandfather, my mother's dad, and he would traumatize me, abuse me, and shatter my soul, my essence of my being, and then would pass me around through these little groups that are down there in Lake Havasu that specialize in training up children to be either sex slaves or to be children that are caught up in mules, like trafficking drugs, pornography, and different materials, a lot of like the chemical byproducts that are produced during these explicit torments and agonies. And so during the course of those events, I saw a lot of horrific, perpetual, ongoing abuse happening to people around me that I cared about. And it developed in me this desire, this deep-seated need for revenge, this deep-seated desire to stop it. And so once they kind of determine what it is that really drives you? What is the predominant fuel for your fires in your furnace? They then use that as a weapon against you. And so I became very weaponized towards violence. And the Jesuits are part of these inheritors of these ancient order of the Hashashins, the assassins, the sicarios, the people, the keepers of this blade that have been practitioners of the ways of Cain all the way back into antiquity. And so I got raised up and trained up by these men who were possessed by monsters to go out and consume and devour the people that they convinced me were the bad guys. And I believe that was the way that we could cure all this evil that was taking place, was to just physically strangle it to death. But I began to learn very painfully over the course of my life that there was no amount of bloodshed that was going to satisfy the need for justice in my life.
Were you born in Lake Havasu?
No, ma'am. I was not born in Lake Havasu. I was born in Flagstaff, Arizona.
Wow. How old were you when you were being passed around to your grandfather? How old were the children, including yourself, that were? And was it always boys?
My predominant experiences were always boys. Yes, there was a deep need for males under the age of 9 years old, generally white and blue-eyed, predominantly. If they could, a blue-eyed and brown-haired boy was their favorite use for that. And they got their predominant power source by torturing them, tormenting them, molesting them, sexually abusing them, sodomizing them, raping them, torturing them. And so my experiences of that were some of my earliest formative memories, were being passed into this from 3, 4, 5 years old on. And it became kind of my normal, and something that I thought was a normal relationship with family members. This is what, when I thought family reunions, this is what I thought everyone went through. This is what my cousins went through. This is what the experience were for all of us boys. I did not have experiences, and I never saw the sister side of this whole equation. That was very much kept out of the reach of my mind. But for myself,
girls are being abused too.
I believe, yes, they were being abused, but I can't say that for certain because I didn't witness it. They were abused in different ways by being able to keep this covered up.
Right.
When did you move to Lake Havasu?
I never moved specifically to Lake Havasu. My family would take me down there for weeks at a time, days at a time, and then they would bring me back up to Flagstaff, Arizona, or we moved to Pine Top, Show Low Lakeside. My family continually moved me around from school to school, either homeschool, public school, private schools, Christian schools. That they were moving me around regularly, sometimes every couple of months, so that, I mean, it becomes really obvious when children are being perpetually, chronically abused and taken out and made to go through these things. And I mean, I was puking blood at school and having horrific body marks, wounds and bruises showing up all over my body. And so once any of this would kind of come to the surface, people start asking questions. Or if I developed a really strong emotional bond, like a relationship with teachers or students that were around me, classmates, that would get silenced really quickly and get broken off. There was just a perpetual need to destabilize my life and keep me kind of in this kingdom of the gray, so that there was plausible deniability in every area around us.
Did you ever research the history of Lake Havasu? I've
researched some of the history of Lake Havasu, Arizona. Yes, it was... it started as a place called Site 6 in 1943. The United States Army, basically the Army Air Force, before there was the creation of the Air Force later after World War II. They used it as one of these stopover points from relaying soldiers and supplies across the deserts of the Southwest. And Site 6 was actually, they took over somebody privately owned land and built air bases on top of it. And they began a R&R stopover, so rest and recuperation, basically a place of harlotry and drunkenness and everything else began to be kind of what it was known for there at Lake Havasu. Lake Havasu is a lake that is formed by the Parker Dam, which dams up the Colorado River, which was designed to pump water into the central parts and southern parts of Arizona, into Phoenix and Tucson. And then that lake became kind of a hotbed for fishing and boating sports. And a guy named Robert McCulloch, later on in the late 1950s, early 1960s, purchased what was at the time the single largest land tract ever purchased in Arizona state history, purchased 26 square miles along Lake Havasu shoreline there. And he wanted to develop it with a man named C.V. Wood, Cornelius Vanderbilt Wood, who was recruited by the Disney brothers, Walt Disney. He is the actual founder and the designer and the builder, architect behind Disneyland. And Cornelius Vanderbilt, that name should ring a bell if you don't know about the Vanderbilt families. They're a dynastic family who grew to great power at the same time, contemporaneous with the Reynolds family. And he was recruited out of Stanford Institute, or Research Institute, which was a branch of Stanford University, a hotbed for the mind control experiments in the United States government, scientific technologies program for projects like Mockingbird and Blue Jay and Artichoke and places like that. Stanford Institute was a place where a lot of the scientific technical aspects of that were created. So C.V. Wood was recruited by the Walt Disney brothers to oversee a land picking and evaluation, site planning, and layout for Disneyland. He was the first one to actually start it up and got everything laid out. And he ended up building other communities across the country, like Pleasure Island in Massachusetts and Heritage Square, I believe, in Golden, Colorado. And he ultimately was brought in to help Robert McCulloch, who was the purchaser of all this land, buy the London Bridge, the actual London Bridge built in the 1830s.
It was actually falling down.
Yes, it was falling down because and the reason that London Bridge, little sing-song rhyme everyone sings, is the London Bridge is falling down, is because they've sacrificed children and put them in the walls of that building, and they would entomb them over. And this is why they said if it's falling down, if the people aren't willing to sacrifice their babies and put them into the walls of that, this is why that people are saying you got to keep the bridge built. And this is why every children to this day, you buy a little children's toy, it's got that song programmed into it, because they still want the city of London predominantly. We're not talking about Great Britain Empire. The city of London is one of these city states, a total autonomous entity on the face of the earth. The District of Columbia is another one, and the Vatican. These are the three empires that really run the military, the financial, and the religious sides of the world for all intents and purposes. The city of London was then given by Robert McCulloch this island that they created, where the London Bridge was brought stone by stone, brought over and built over and created an island there. The city of London legally owns that territory. They purchased it indeed for the price of a Kachina doll. And if y'all don't know what a Kachina doll is, at Mount Prescott, which is where I was born, they call it Mount Hermon, where the Watchers descended, where these fallen angels came down and had sex with women and taught them all these sorceries. The Kachina were these dolls that are carved as effigies during the winter months, from the winter solstice to the summer solstice. They believe these entities will come down and have sex with their daughters, and that they take these dolls, carve them up, and then they nail them to their wall so that they can remember them and make offerings to them. So they literally purchased the land for the price of one Kachina doll. And so that deity is the one who has the spiritual power over that area. Well, the city of London now has a city-state in the sovereign United States, like an embassy here in the United States. So it gives them legal anonymity and immunity. So this is why the pedophilia rings were brought in and centered around Lake Havasu City. This is why C.V. Wood brought in and built another little mind-controlled little micro community there. And then Robert McCulloch began to bring over free flights. I believe he used these DC-6 or Constellation Airline. He brought over free flights from Phoenix, Arizona, up until the 1978. 32,000 people were brought over as prospective buyers to start buying up and building up this community that was catered as a retirement community, so that these male cults, these male sex cults, could have access to continually a new pool of young boys and children being trafficked around, where they had deniability that, hey, it's a retirement area. These are my grandkids, or these are my nephews. These are, and so there was built into the system.
And it's international.
Yeah, an international sex trade. And so from there, they began to set up a lot of the industry that actually funnels the finances and the meat of the human cattle resources to come up through there, from the central United States to the southern United States, and kind of consolidate that power basis there in Lake Havasu City. So it kind of became the melting pot for a lot of this activity. And this is why my family was passing me down there. This is why my grandfather set up his base of operations there. He was a good handler. He was really good at fracturing and shattering children. And so he got a good reputation for that, and then was brought in as a Fourth Order Knight in the Knights of Columbus, which he still is to this day.
Do you think there's deep underground military bases underneath the city?
I do not know about the military bases specifically. I know that there's tunnel systems that branch out from the city of London's territory right there on the island that were set up, I think, from Site 6 during the World War I or World War II. However, the sites and the tunnels that I saw did not have the same military build out like I saw later on in Colorado Springs, or under Schriever Air Force Base and Fort Carson Air Force Base, or Fort Carson Army Base in Colorado Springs.
So are you saying they're more
they seemed like old order stuff, meaning stone block masonry, not concrete blocks and linoleum floors.
The designer for Disneyland also, because I work for Disneyland and I have ties in Lake Havasu, tunnels. So why wouldn't he build a catacomb of tunnels underneath that city as well?
Yes, the tunnel systems that I saw were not. I did not go on extensive underground tours down in there. I did see some tunnel systems, predominantly around the bridge and under what they call like the boardwalk, the main drag of where all the little shops and the play places are for the hotel services and the pedophilia services are.
Wow, I know that area so well. So what happened to you when you were brought to Lake Havasu? Can you tell us?
depending on different times of my life, like early on, a lot of it was just a lot of abuse and a lot of programming, so that I would be loyal to them, that I would be willing to do what they say, that I learned to enforce the oaths. These people were obsessed with their oaths, that they needed to be enforced, and that there was a massive conspiracy of silence, that nobody could talk about this. And so you get convinced with a lot of trauma that you can't get out of this, that there's nothing you can do to get out of it. Once that's set in place and you're bonded to them, really a lot of what I began to do was just physically learn how to kill and slaughter human beings and make it look like suicides or accidental deaths or natural causes. So there was a lot of time spent in body moratoriums, places where people are held in state, and you learn how to dismantle and kill human beings in less than 2 seconds. So like,
Was that as a child?
this was under just a regular building called I believe it was called Oasis at the time, which was like almost like a swimming outdoor pool recreation area.
Mm-hmm.
And they just had a cold storage unit underneath that where human beings were processed through.
Were you a child?
Yes, ma'am.
How old were you?
From the ages of 6 years old for certain, all the way up until my teenage years.
Oh my God. Now, so what are some of the methods that are used to commit assassination to make it look like a suicide? How do you do that?
I mean, ideally, one of the ways that you can do that is make it look like a heart attack. So that's an overdose of potassium, something simple as
so
giving
some
somebody
sort of a pill or
poisons. Poisons is one of the best ways. Otherwise, you're strangling people and making it look like they died in their sleep. So natural causes, injecting people between their toes in places that are hard to see and identify. Those are kind of the main methodologies. Now it's a little bit different. They use a little bit different technologies to make that take place.
And how young were you when you killed somebody for the first time?
6 years old.
6 years old. Wow.
I believed that the person was one of my abusers and torturing other children, and they made it look like a crucifixion to try to make me traumatized and be scared of Jesus or any relationship with the Messiah ever. And so there was like a mock crucifixion, and they ripped this person's beard out, and everyone got a chance to get their revenge on him. And I was brought in to do the killing blow and enter into this spiritual covenant with this spirit of death.
How did you feel after you did that for the first time?
Freedom.
Did you later find out that this person wasn't responsible for doing anything to you?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know anything about that person.
That's a basic MK Ultra.
I was going to say mind control. If you believed you were doing the right thing,
in which one of the experiments that is actually online is where a doctor puts a woman's hand in acid, then he puts it in alkaline, and then he tells her that when she awakens, that the person responsible for her pain, she will kill that person. She will throw the acid in their face. They replace the acid with water, and then they say that person is to your right. And then when she awakens, she picks up what she thinks is acid, but it's actually water, and throws it at the individual. That's an MK Ultra mind control operation in which they make you believe that is the perpetrator, when in fact the perpetrator in this case was the doctor.
Right. My grandfather he generally drowned children. That was his way of doing it in his bathtub. He had a big step down bathtub, or in his backyard pool. He would drown them until they were unconscious, and then he would resuscitate them, and then they would believe that he had saved their life, and it would create this like bond of you're my hero. You know, that was one of the ways to bond us to him. Later on, one of the ways they started doing this was they were mixing a scientific form in with this ritualistic old religion. My family were practitioners of serpent eaters. These are people that believe they literally have the bloodline of the serpent, that they are carriers of this divine right to rule as kings, that they carry the seed of the serpent with them, and therefore they can do this to human beings because they're a subspecies. They're a different thing than what they are. And so they got this mixture in with that, and they kind of took the technology up a notch, and they began to freeze people, take the blood out of their body, cool it down completely till their heart stopped. And then they would kind of possess them and do this like trauma and abuse to them, and then put their blood back into their body and bring them back to life. That was some of that technology was developed there in Phoenix, Arizona, and then was used there in Lake Havasu, and still in use to this day, and still something that you can go down to Phoenix and have done to you. People are doing that now as a way to try to go to the afterlife and other stuff and talk to spirits and come back with covenant.
I mean, you're just kind of freaking me out a little bit because the Lake Havasu thing.
Yeah.
Because that's where my handler is. And that's where I started my career as singing. And I refer to it as he sold me out there because he was my agent and my manager. I'm a singer. So you have my absolute attention. because I know what you're saying is true.
How long were you in the system before something happened and it woke you up?
It was till I was 18 years old that really something shook me up enough to get me out all the way. Not all the way, but as much as I possibly could be, I guess. But because I became addicted to I thought, like I said, I thought it was freedom came through death. I became convinced of that. I got so yoked to it then.
Did you feel a little bit more free every time you killed somebody? Like another.
I thought everybody else was getting more free. I knew I was a prisoner till the day I died. That's what I knew. Okay. I knew that I was ruined. I knew I was irredeemable, irrevocably corrupted, and completely wasted. I knew there was no hope for me. But my desire that drove me was that there could be hope for somebody else, that if I put down one of these monsters, that was one less day some other child had to suffer like I did. That was one less day some other child had to grow up knowing that they were defiled at an age when they could do nothing about it, where they thought it was a game, where they thought it was normal, where they thought it was okay. I just wanted somebody to have freedom from the filth.
You were feeling the freedom for somebody else, but you yourself knew you were still a prisoner.
I knew I was going to be a prisoner till the day I died. I can't stress it enough. I was 100% convinced in the absolute microscopic DNA level of my being. I was 100% never able to get out of that system. Yes. I could not even comprehend the idea that there was freedom for someone like me at that point in my life. Freedom to me came through the end of a knife, came through the end of a strangulation cord. There was no other way of deliverance to me other than through the doors of death.
Had you ever thought about taking that door yourself?
Of like killing myself? I thought about killing myself my entire life. Like as long as I possibly could, I wanted to die. I didn't necessarily want to kill myself. I always wanted to be killed by somebody else so I could die a hero's death, right? I never intended to kill myself. Even any actions I did, even self-harming, I used to self-mutilate myself and cut myself and injure myself bodily to try to show something physically, to strip away, to rape off the surface of my skin so that there could be some physical evidence of the internal anguish that I was perpetually plagued with, like the night terrors and the horror of what I saw when I closed my eyes. I wanted something physically to mark me as ruined, as defiled. Like I used to write it on my wrist every single day in permanent marker, ruined in Hebrew, just ruined. That's what I was. Like I didn't have a concept of redemption. I had exposure to truth and through salvation and deliverance. I heard people talk about where deliverance comes from through this belief and this faith and this relationship with our creator. But I never saw it really demonstrated by somebody that was so defiled, not until later in my life. And those were, like you were asking David to answer a question later on, that's some of the impetus that got me out, was I started seeing people that were getting set free and coming into a place of redemption, restoration. And it started being these little breadcrumbs of hope back in my soul that, hey, there's something out there. I could eat my bread in satisfaction. I could lay down and sleep in peace. I wanted to know that and experience that. But at the same time, this list began to grow in my mind of all these people that I was killing. And I started to determine as my life went on, as I grew into a teenager, I started to see that this kind of ritualistic family order, this kind of Jesuit order, this black hand of the black sun that was working its way through everywhere. I realized that I was perpetually being manipulated and lied to, so I couldn't really trust these people. And about that time, they brought in the military handlers to be like, okay, well, let's offer you awards for this. Let's offer you a uniform. Let's offer you a unit so you're not alone. And then I got bought into this whole God of the universe, this God of America, this God of fortune. I became a mercenary for all intents and purposes. You swear an oath.
Did you join the military?
Yes, ma'am. I got emancipated to the United States Army at 17 years old, as a junior in high school.
Jesus. Okay, tell us about that.
Yeah. I began to start work. I've been used by the military to do different work along the way. Like people have this idea that the best special forces operators in the United States military are the guys who train everybody else. Civilians are predominantly the people that train our elite forces or elite cadres. The best shooters in the world are civilians, like competition shooters. They're the ones who come in and train Delta forces. So like you have those same like martial artists and shooters that are brought in to do actually the training and the programming of the top tier, special forces and military guys. Those are the same people that are religious assets. Those are assets of the family, this network that my family was a part of. Those are the ones who were teaching me and programming me early on. And so when I had these aptitudes, when I would go after people and kill them successfully and get away with it, it builds a reputation for you. And so I started having this reputation, was being brought in for military projects, because there's a massive little underground war that happens continually, especially after the fall of the Soviet Union. There was a massive a land grab for all intents and purposes of all the defense contractors and all of the industry, the military industrial complex was trying to find out who could be the next players in the game and who was going to use this different versions of technology to get there. And so I got relocated with my family to Colorado Springs, Colorado, and so that I could get put into the Air Force projects and get prepped through their systems. The United States Air Force Academy up there is where they train their upper echelon of officers, military officers. And in Denver, Colorado, and Colorado Springs, it's literally like the capital of the New World Order. It's the capital of the United States.
Yes, it is.
Continuity of government. It's people think of Washington, D.C. and the District of Columbia, but it's not. The CIA moved their headquarters there. The Defense Intelligence Agency moved their headquarters there. So
Space
many
Force is
agencies
there.
moved their headquarters there for that reason.
NORAD and Space Force are there.
Yeah, and so like one of my military handlers, a guy named Colonel Weaver, Lieutenant Colonel Weaver, was at NORAD, and he began to bring me into that system to try to groom me and prepare me to go into the Air Force. But I had, let's just say, rebellious acts towards them. They kept thinking I was a wolf that was going to bite their hands. They didn't want to touch me after a while. But the Army scooped me up, and so I got brought into training at Fort Knox, Kentucky, which is the home. If you read the book, The Men Who Stare at Goats, you'll find out this is the home where a lot of these Psi warrior projects
Yes.
got their grounding there. And so I got passed into there so that I could get programmed through the military to become kind of their asset. And the military handles things differently. They don't use all this ritualistic like sex magic to traumatize and fracture and control people. They use a different form of technology, using fMRI, like functional magnetic resonance imaging scanners, and programming through helmets. And it was a lot more technologically based, a lot more like injection based with like nanoparticles, programmable matter, like black goo stuff, gene editing software.
Super soldier? Is that creating a super soldier?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Enhancement and embellishment. Do you have any implants that you know of?
God willing, not anymore. You know, I believe the only way that I could get it out was through, at the end of it was really with divine intervention, was that I could pray and petition the Father, the creator of all life, to get this stuff out of me. And that's where part of it happens, is my book, The Snatched from the Flames, I talk about in chapter 5. When I got this healing process began and started praying and rebuking these evil spirits that I've been tied to, these soul ties, and disavowing my contracts and my secrecy oaths, I started speaking out against those things. My body began to detoxify severely. These marks started showing up on my body. Black goo started oozing out of my feet and out of my ankles. I started literally shedding these things out of my body.
Did they inject you with it?
Yes, I volunteered for a lot of that gene editing. I thought I wanted to be a super soldier. If I could carry a 600-pound, if I could carry 300 pounds or 600 pounds on my back and be an Ubermensch, I wanted to be Superman. You know, I wanted to be like a god on this earth, so I could just devour all of the monsters.
Yeah, I think I got injected with that when I was in Lake Havasu 40 years later, when I went back to go see my handler. And I don't know if it was a form of it, but at one point I turned green. I don't know, Nathan.
You turned green.
I turned green.
Wow.
I think it's some kind of a biohazard or something, but I was hypnotized, and I know that he injected me with something, and then later on I turned green. And my spine was, I remember when I was 12, I moved a pool table with my back. It was a granted pool table. I was underneath the pool table. I moved it with my back.
Wow.
How long were you in the Army?
On paper, I was in the Army for 2 years.
Okay.
Yes.
What did you do?
Whatever they asked.
I mean, did you have like a title?
Yes, I was a supply specialist on paper.
Oh.
So in the military, I think there's an illusion that people get because they watch the Prophets of Baal, Hollywood One versions of movies and TV shows. But the military is really strange in that there's units, and you can have a unit or a platoon that you're a part of. And then you have other soldiers that will come in and out of that unit that are not a part of your unit, but they're there for a moment of time or sometimes seasons of times, certain amounts of deployment. And there are a lot of times they'll say they're in between deployments. And so what a lot of times is actually happening is you have spies within spies that are planted into different groups. And so in every area of the United States military, we're talking Air Force, Army, Marines, all of it, they have to have spies to keep an eye on everything else. So they say, right. But basically you have people that are brought in as undercover investigators to evaluate whether or not certain things are happening. And my big passion and drive was that I wanted to be a part of a group of people that would hunt down the bad guys, right? I just wanted to kill people that covered up crimes. I got to a place in my life, I'll be just totally honest with you. I got to a place in my life where I stopped wanting to just kill the bad guys that people think about, like, oh, these guys, they're abusing these children and they're the worst. The worst people to me are the people that cover it up. almost without question, every single pedophile that I've ever investigated thoroughly and diligently, they themselves have been traumatized and sexualized at such young ages. They were defiled, and they lack conceptual understanding of how to be a normal human and not abuse other people. I worked for 10 years as a psychologist in the mental health field, trying to repair my brain and help other people. And 18 months of that was in a unit for adjudicated youth, people that had been sexually abused and abused others from 6 years old up to 18, 17 years old. It was called Devereux Cleo Wallace in Westminster, Colorado. And you get to learn that the rates of recidivism, how often they're going to go out and reoffend again, are generally 90%. 90% of the people that are abused tend to go out and do likewise. Even with massive intensive treatment and intervention at young ages, they could lower it to about 75%. This is why I ended up leaving that field and really believing there was only a spiritual cure to the cancer of these diseases that we talk about. And I could not cure that through the end of a knife. So this unit that I got a part of and I got offered to be brought into had the intelligence networks and the people behind it to actually help me go after the guys that I believed were the worst. But even within that same system, I saw that we could be sent into like to Alexandria, Virginia to go bust up a pedophile ring. And really what you found out is you're just getting planted in there to capture evidence on one person as a part of it. And they'll generally extract that guy, pull him out of there, torture him, get the information out of him. Then they put in their own guy, an undercover agent, to take over his place, who's going to be a pedophile, like actually be a pedophile. People think it's like, oh no, he's just going to act like he's buying children and he's getting them out of there. No, man, they're going to be raping children. And so the only way you do that is with somebody that's fully already committed to doing that kind of thing to begin with. So they get other pedophiles to go into that position and take over and feed the information back in, but they're not actually eliminating the rings. People think that there's this form of justice that exists in the world. It's not a reality. Like they're going to knock off a couple of people on the outer portion of the ring and they're going to make a big news story out of it, but they're going to make sure to insulate all of their people that are actually within the agencies that are doing these things. Because this is where black budget projects gets their funding, y'all. It's not like there's a government agency that divvies out money in equal forms to the government and the military projects that they say they do. There is an entire secondary currency. They call it black gold. The Jesuits are the black hand of the Pope. The Knights of Columbus are his right hand. They're like, oh, we are the good insurance agency, the Knights of Columbus. The Jesuits are the people that go out and do the dirty trickster stuff. That's like the Reynolds family. My family, Reynolds family, was like the people that were willing to do this, wade into this filth, sex trafficking, child trafficking, drug trafficking. This is like the Iran-Contra. Like you start to dig into the closets of these politicians, these leaders. This is what you start finding, because this is what really finances the world. This is where all of this power and wealth and control actually functions. It's the backbone of this society that we live in.
So after you got out of the military, you became a psychologist?
So I went to the University of Colorado at Boulder to study psychology. It's like the preeminent research university for psychology. And I was kind of forced there because of this place called the Sutherland Center, which is where upper echelon families send their children to continue to be mind controlled and handled. Like the DuPonts, this is where the DuPonts send their children. They have their therapists there.
Were you doing any MK Ultra deprogramming?
Was I being deprogrammed? No, I wasn't being deprogrammed.
Were you acting? Because I have a friend who was an MK Ultra deprogrammer. She deprogrammed people.
Okay.
Did you do any of that?
You know, I didn't go through any. I believe my family is still trying to keep a hold on me. Like when I say my family, I just want to be clear. The family is like the religious order behind a lot of this institutionalized radical evil. The network would be more like the government, the political, scientific side of it. Okay. My family could not keep control of me once they gave me over to the United States military. They lost their ability to extract information out of me. The military was better at compartmentalizing me and keeping me from telling other people than they were. So when I got out of the military, because I refused to obey these orders, because I got tired of them only taking out certain people and not allowing us to actually bring true justice. And so I started rebelling. And as soon as you do that, you're out. And so when I got brought back out of the military, my family put me into family-run mind-controlled handlers. They wanted to reprogram me to get me back into their little money-making machine, their corporate controls as I could. But I stopped taking their pharmaceuticals. That was the single biggest thing that changed my life, was I stopped taking all the drugs that they were trying to put me on. But I acted like, and I told them that I still was for a long time. And I started faking urine tests and stuff like that to try to hide it, you know. And during the course of those events, I started coming back to my relationship with Yahuwah, the creator of the heavens and the earth. I came back to that, started reading my Bible diligently for myself. And I believed that I actually could have deliverance. I actually could have hope for healing. But at that time, I mean, my hair was literally falling out. I had breakouts all over my skin all the time, irregular tachycardia, like my heart was being exploded, bruises all over my chest. Like I was dying from all the pharmaceuticals, all the drugs that they had me on a constant ongoing basis. And so when I stopped, it was like someone gave me my mind back, and I had this peace again, and I could make clear thoughts and decisions. And I started limiting access to this, the handlers at the Sutherland Institute, and I started going towards the scriptures for healing, and I started developing a community of people around me that were authentic, that were like real humans that didn't have an ulterior agenda. And it started to transform me really quickly. And my family began to lose a lot of those tendrils of control. And I ended up meeting the gal who ended up becoming my wife about 8 months after this process. And she began to show me an authentic love-based relationship, one that had true unconditional love that was at the foundational point of it. And this is where a lot of I feel safe enough to finally deal with all the trauma from the past got set free. I finally got to a place where I'm not ruined. Like I have a relationship that's real and meaningful and can carry on. But a couple of years into my marriage, my dad moved into my house with my wife and I, and he tried to get me back into the system and brought me all the way back into this whole other persona of a hunter killer, try to do special kill teams operations with him and my grandfather back down in Lake Havasu again. And so then in the middle of my marriage, I turned into a totally different person. And my wife and I's relationship just imploded because I wanted to go stalk and kill humans all night.
Wow.
And we didn't know who I was anymore. I was wearing guns all the time and knives and body armor and burying stuff in the woods and disappearing. She was like, I don't know who you are and what happened to the guy who's just in psychology and, just the Christian man I thought I married. What the heck is this that showed up, And so our relationship began to just completely implode. But at the same time, I started coming across information where people were speaking out on these topics, like a guy named Russ Dizdar, who was so bold and so brave to speak these secrets and had written a book called The Black Awakening, The Rise of the Satanic Super Soldier. And
He just died recently, didn't he?
Yeah, they murdered him and his wife, Shelley, at the same, about 2 years ago in October.
I think a month
him and Rob
apart,
Skiba in the same week.
Yeah.
Yes. They, but for all intents and purposes, the guy finished a lot of his race. I'll tell you that much. He put out thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of audio content.
You can't get his book anymore.
No, they've limited access to his information. But if you go to blackawakening.com, he still did an entire teaching series from every chapter of the book. So you can listen at least through that. If any of you actually have a copy of The Black Awakening, you send it to me. I'll digitize it and we can get it back up online for everyone and do an audio.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm really passionate about doing audio content. So I did an entire audio recording of the scriptures so people could hear it being said, because we can't have any faith without hearing, and hearing. Belief comes through hearing.
Is your book only an audio, or can you?
No, ma'am. I have you can go to Amazon.com and get a physical copy of it if you want. Anytime. You can get a PDF. If you go to the show notes in any of my videos, you can download for free a PDF of the book. I did an entire audiobook of it so that it's also free if you can't afford it. I don't want anybody to have limited access to this because of money. Snatched from the Flames is the book title. And you can find it on Amazon, also at snatchedfromtheflames.com. The entire book, you can read it online for there. If you guys don't have, I don't need you guys to buy stuff from me. I get it out there for people. Any of my content is free for people. Freely I've been given this. Freely I give it away to everybody else. None of this is mine. I'm a dead man walking, and I want to make sure that the truth goes out no matter the cost. And it's more important to me that people have access to the truth than they have. I don't need anything from anybody. I just want them to know what is the truth, because in a world filled with deception, it's a dangerous thing to tell the truth, but it's more dangerous to get in a car and drive down the road than it is to speak the truth. So I'm passionate about and trying to inspire people to be brave, to come out and speak the secrets, to come out and speak the truth. They can't kill all of us. It's only the illusion of great power and omniscience that they have is broken. That spell gets broken when you speak the truth and realize they can't kill you. Like if you are absolutely in the Father's hand, no one can snatch you out of it. Like if you have an authentic relationship with your deliverer, your redeemer, and you walk in his ways, he makes even your enemies to be at peace with you. So in the beginning, when I came out against my family, began to speak out against them, they sent people to try to assassinate us and kill us. My wife, who was pregnant with my daughter Naomi, she was 7 months pregnant at the time, they sent teams of people to try to murder us, and I never had to fire my pistols. I never had to pull my knives out and fight them physically. I got to see their weapons jam. I've seen drones get stopped in front of my eyes. I've seen their technologies they're using to track us completely blurred out and unable to physically see us. Walk up to us, people with knives completely hooked out and rippling with rage, all hopped up on methamphetamines with big old knives in their hands, ready to slaughter us, coming in with tracking software with my phone tracking it, and it blurs out and they can't see me physically with their eyes. Like there is a spiritual power that is greater than anything this world has ever comprehended, and it comes from the creator of the heavens and the earth, and he can deliver any of us when we call on him, no matter what we're trapped in, no matter what we're buried in. He has the power to truly rescue anybody who calls on him, and I tested it. I don't just say that because I read this book one day and I got other people told me it. No, I've tested tested it consistently from the days of my youth till now. And I've seen it's the absolute source of truth. And so I believe in it. And I'm passionate to share these things because I have found it's better to suffer with the fellowship of people that are doing it for the truth than to continue to live in silence and be the king on the castle. Like, it's better to suffer with people for the sake of righteousness and truth than it is to just live this opulent life and know that you live every day in dread, because there is no peace for the wicked.
God. Now that you are out of the system, I just heard you mention a couple moments ago that you're a dead man walking. Does that mean you're a target?
All the time. Absolutely. Oh yeah. But you know what's so good about that? It's good to know that you're being hunted. You know, like if otherwise you got to understand that this whole world is full of predators. But what's so beautiful is if you have a bunch of allies, like, who are absolutely on your side and committed to keeping you alive and your family safe and supported, like, you become unkillable. And like, that's why it's a spiritual war, y'all. As much as we want to talk about like the carnal side of this, there really is a spiritual war between like good and evil, light and darkness. And if you choose to walk in this kingdom of the gray and you try to be like, I'm undecided, I'm a little agnostic, I don't really know about that, the truth is you're going to get devoured by the wolves. The wolves are always seeking. They're like, there's lions continually prowling around seeking to kill, steal, and destroy. But if you are setting yourself apart from that entire system, if you're willing to walk in the ways that are pleasing before him, if you do the things that he said, hey, I like to do Bible things, Bible ways. Like, I started turning back to the natural ways of living. Like, what does he say I should wear? What does he say I should eat? What's he say that I should look at? What does he say I should do with my time? Like, what matters to him? Like, how about I be about those things? And as I do that, this system of this world that can control us all begins to slip off of you. You become uncontrollable, which is why like shows like this exist. It's why there's people that are out there able to speak these secrets that aren't killed, even though they go after you. In the beginning, when I first started speaking out against this, my family would come onto these shows and they would they would put hundreds of comments in the videos, comment sections on these videos like this. They would try to get a control of the narrative, but they stopped over time as the message continued to go forth. They stopped because they realized there is so much more pressure against this system of evil now than there ever has been in the history of mankind, because the access to information has become broad stream. They've allowed people to have access to their books. It's their own revelation of the beast system that hey, everyone's without excuse. We told you all, like, we wrote it plainly in our books. You just were too ignorant and stupid to read them and comprehend what we're saying. But you know what? No one's without excuse. They can pick up a book and read what it is that's actually taking place here and be set free from it. They can get cured of this virus that's taken over our minds, that's controlling us through fear. If you get set free from fear, there is no power in death anymore. Like, I don't fear death. I don't fear death. The reason I say I'm a dead man walking is because I died. Like, I died. My physical body has died. Like, who I used to be, this old man that I used to be, this one who just was hungry for killing all the time, this one who just wanted death all the time, that old man died in me. Like, this is why something called baptism exists. Like, you literally go and put yourself to death in the water. Like, you die like our Messiah died, but you come back to life as a new person who's set apart to do good on this earth. Like, so now I have a commission, like a marching order from the captain of the heavenly host to go therefore and set the captives free, to preach this good news to every creature, that like, no matter what you've been through, no matter what you've done, there is nothing that can separate you from him. If you're willing to confess your sins, that means you just come out and speak the secrets, no matter how evil it is that what you did. And you think, man, I could never tell anybody about this stuff. It's an absolute lie. You have to. Forgiveness for yourself and for the people that did these things to you, not that they don't get to suffer the consequences. Forgiveness towards them sets you free from the prison cell you're locked in, that bitterness, that anger, that hatred, that rage, that violence, that murder. You get set free from that when you can let that go, and you can turn the keys of vengeance over to somebody else who actually has the power to scourge the enemy no matter where they hide. That there's nowhere they can't hide. There's no deep underground military base deep enough to get away from the imminent, absolute, inescapable judgment that's coming for them.
So what do you see going forward then as your mission between now and the time that, and I hope you live a long, healthy, and
Me too.
Prosperous life, but obviously you're an individual on a mission. You're doing the work of God. So what is your mission as you see it?
To set the captives free wherever I find them. And their predominant place I find captives are cowards. People are controlled and riddled with fear. Not until, like, the best thing I can ever do is to lay my life down for a friend. Like, that's how I can actually show I love people, is to take off any power and authority that I ever had in this worldly system, to deny the family that I had, the inheritance that I thought I was going to be given. I was always promised this you're going to go through all this horrible stuff, but there's going to come a day where we turn the kingdom keys over to you and you have all the power to do whatever you want. And I let go of that. I wouldn't give them my daughter, Naomi. That was like the legal guardianship trust for the Reynolds family that I had to do. I had to give them legal guardianship rights of my daughter for 2 weeks out of the year and increasing over time to do whatever they wanted to her. And I wasn't willing to do that. I wasn't willing to sign that over so I could get into the family trust, because I wanted my family, first and foremost, to raise my family up in the path of righteousness, to try to set them apart from this system and allow them to be free to choose. Like, I want my daughters and my son to be able to have a choice in life. I want them to know that there is something called freedom that's available to them that doesn't come at the hand of corruption. And so my mission in this world is to make sure that every single person and creature on this earth knows that there is an opportunity for freedom, true freedom, that can actually set them free of the bitterness and the sorrow and the despair and the hopelessness and the impotency. Like, if there's one thing I could drive home more than anything else, is that men need to be men again. Like, men need to truly be men, filled with courage and boldness and confidence that devour the despair and the loneliness that creeped into our souls, that convinced us that there's no purpose for us, that there's no place for us. But there's an entire generation of people always looking around with, where are the men? Where are the dads? Where's the fathers who say no to this? No, I do not consent. No, you cannot have my children. No, you cannot destroy my community. No, you cannot have my life. Don't give them control anymore. And you do that by turning off these black mirrors of sorcery, these influences of the system of the world. You pick up books and you read and identify and you learn skills, and you become confident to overcome a system of suffering that we've been ensnared in. Like my family and I, we sold our home back in Colorado, and we spent almost 5 years traveling in an RV all across this country, 150,000 miles. And I went and learned trades and skills. I learned how to be a farmer, a homesteader, a rancher. Like, I learned what it takes to actually be a human being on this earth, like how to put food on my family's table, and what it means to eat a meal in satisfaction, like why we fresh mill our own flour. My wife bakes her own bread, and she makes my own children's clothing. Like, there's these skills and these experiences and these rewards that we have been so divorced from, raped from, because they destroyed the family unit. If you go back to the systemic destruction of our society, the compulsory education system brought in the 1800s, like the eradication of critical thought and the trivium and the quadrivium and these methods of learning and instruction that were just taken away from us. And we are forced to sit in a classroom where you learn to stay in your class. You stay in your class. You stay in your class. You stay in your class. You're forced to learn that you can't tell us what to do. You ask the authority in the room, the white robe priest, if this is true medical advice or not. You go ask the governing official whether or not that's true. You go ask the teacher if you can go pee. Like, you're forced into these systems of control for so long, and it just starves you of your any masculinity that you ever had, any desire that you had to go and be a free human. It's not just men, but that you have a purpose that matters, and you can make a significant impact in this world if you're willing to only speak the truth. And that's a super dangerous thing to do in the world filled with deception. If you commit yourself to being an authentic person to the best of your ability and best of your understanding, that you live that out. It's a horribly brutal life out there to do that. But by doing so, you will eat your bread in satisfaction, and you can lay down and sleep in peace. And it's the most satisfying thing to ever know, that you are an authentic person who cares, loves the Creator, loves Yahuwah with all your heart, your soul, your strength, your mind, and you love your neighbor as yourself. When you start to do those things, when you pick that up, you start to build up endurance to overcome this radical evil that's trying to destroy everything. And it drives back that darkness, and freedom comes into you and then to the people all around you. And this is how we become cities on a hill. This is how we can start to build up cities of refuges, to bring healing and deliverance to people who are tormented and tortured, that they can have restoration and a purpose that's beyond what they were told.
The things that you saw in Lake Havasu, still happening in Lake Havasu?
Absolutely. People write me regularly that this is still ongoing.
Any way to stop it?
My family still takes their children down there and strips their boys down naked and takes pictures of them to this day.
Any way to stop it?
Anyway, stop it. Exactly like I'm talking about right now. Speak the truth. Speak the secrets. Go tell everyone. Drain the lake and reveal all the bodies buried in there.
I know this may sound like a little bit off the menu, but have you seen the movie The Sound of Freedom, and what did you think of that?
No, sir. I don't watch films anymore. Okay. You know, I study diligently, but I don't allow much to come into my.
Are you familiar with the story?
No, sir. I'm familiar with people talking about it. That's about it.
Okay. All right. Where can people get in contact with you and get your book and everything else? You have a website?
Yes, they can go to snatchedfromtheflames.com, spelled just like this, snatchedfromtheflames.com.
Okay.
And they can also go to youtube.com/Nathan Reynolds. I have a YouTube channel with a couple hundred videos on there as well of our content. And I've done speaking and speaking engagements all over the country, and a lot of interviews that I've done recently are also there. And they can order my book through the website, snatchedfromtheflames.com, or they can go to Amazon and search it right there as well.
You don't have a Kindle version yet?
I do. I don't have a Kindle version specifically. No, I have a PDF version that people can use. No, I'm not necessarily the most tech savvy individual, but
if you have a PDF version, because I know Penny and I both have Kindles, you can actually put the book on your Kindle and read a PDF.
Yes.
Okay.
So how do you get the PDF version?
You can go to snatchedfromtheflames.com and you can click right there on purchase it, or you can look on read online for free. It's also in the descriptions of my YouTube channel. You can download it directly from there. If you don't want to make a contribution towards purchasing it, you can just download it for free from there. There's also the audiobook is available on there as well, which you can download from any PC computer and transfer to a mobile device, or you can use the direct download link in the description below.
We'd like to have you back. And what I'd like to do the next time you come on the program, Nathan, is talk about kind of the latter half of what we talked about here, about men becoming men again and learning how to take care of their families and their responsibilities. Maybe talk a little bit about education in this country and where it has gone wrong, where critical thinking is no longer taught. They're teaching you what to think, not how to think. If you would be gracious enough to come back, I'd like to pick up on that discussion a little bit.
And
Absolutely.
also, Nathan, Emma says hi.
Hello.
She just
you, Emma.
She just said hi.
For those of you that don't know, Emma has a show which is called Imagination Podcast. You can go on Twitter and YouTube as well. She has been hosting survivors for years and allowing them an opportunity to share their testimony. She had me on about a few weeks ago.
Yes.
And there's some incredible hosts of shows and platforms who are diligently offering their, I mean, it's not fun to weigh into these stories, y'all. I don't like talking about it. To be honest, I stopped sharing my story with people and taking interviews for about a year and a half to just try to, I wanted to rewire my mind back into publicity. And this
Absolutely.
is amazing that you guys are willing to do this. So thank you to each of you who is willing to share your platform with survivors and with people that, I mean, all of us are survivors. We're the leftovers. We're the remnant. But you know what? If we're willing to stand together, it's absolutely indefeatable.
Well, we can do it, and we will do it, and we will have you back so that we can pick up on some of the other things that may be a little bit more easy to talk about as well. So they're serious issues, but I'd like your take on all of them. So Penny will set something up for you to come back.
Yes, thank you so very much for being here, Nathan. Really, really appreciate it. And for those of you who haven't seen the Imagination Podcast with Emma, please find her on YouTube as well. And you can find Nathan Reynolds on YouTube as well.
Great.
Nathan, thank you so much.
Thank you all so much.
All right, God bless. Bye-bye. Nathan Reynolds here on the Awake Nation. What an incredible story, an incredible testimony. And definitely want to have him back because I know he has a lot of takes on how we can prevent this. And this hour was pretty much devoted to what he had done. But I would really like to talk about how we can help to prevent it through several different means and how to just keep our eyes and ears open and our minds awake to this. So we'll definitely do that.